You are on the platform. We've got quite a dynamic show this morning. And next up, I think an issue that is central. Strangely enough, this all links together one way or another, apart from the arse letter, the complaint from the Aotearoa Swingball Society. Free speech is very much part of the post-election spasm that the woke left are having. And, of course, an announcement in the coalition agreement that universities and tertiary institutions must make a commitment and demonstrate a commitment not to the principles of Te Tiriti of Waitangi, whatever the hell they are, but to free speech and the idea of free speech. For unfortunately in this country, and indeed around the Western world, beginning actually, I think, in America, free speech has been replaced by safe speech, by safe spaces, by this weird idea of people committing microaggressions. And we have bred, it would seem to me, a generation of intellectuals who are afraid of their own shadows and, my God, afraid of anyone else voicing an opinion that might be slightly different to theirs. And the woke, of course, injected their woke people with their woke views of the world into those universities, and they quite literally had a witch hunt to get out anyone who might have a different view, which has caused all sorts of problems, I believe, in our society, including in New Zealand, where we had a number of incidents where universities, primarily Massey, though Auckland universities also had some problems with this, where universities actively campaigned to quash free speech, particularly on campus. The most famous event being Don Brash, at Massey, and then, of course, Speak Up for Women, when they tried to have an event at Massey, and once again cancelled after the government's, Labour's most friendly lawyer, Linda Clark, came up with some BS excuse about workplace safety. So, but there is blowback, of course, from the woke media and the activist journalists against the idea of free speech, and a lot of articles over the weekend from lefty journalists about Marxist student organisations saying, oh, this will lead to hate speech. Well, will it? And what is the tradition of free speech on campus? Well, one of the members of the excellent organisation, the Free Speech Union, which of course we have on quite often on the platform, is Wellington lawyer Dr. Rod Mulgan, and he joins us now to discuss this issue. Rod, lovely to have you with us. Welcome to the platform.
Thank you, Sean. It's Mulgan.
Mulgan, that's right. I think of Jesse. And do you mind if I call you Rod? Or do you want to be doctor?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
No, I don't want to be doctor.
Rod, firstly, in a broader sense, have universities hitherto, until recent history, been a place where free speech is not just practiced but almost revered? It is part of the very purpose of a university.
Well, as we all know, it's supposed to be that way. And I'm not aware until we came along that anybody tried to measure that. And I privately suspect that it's been sliding for a long time. I think it's actually a long time since you've been able to freely express a range of opinions on hot-button topics like the treaty, for instance. Now, the Free Speech Union has now run several annual surveys of academia probing exactly this question. Do you feel free in your academic role to express a range of opinions? We consistently find that slightly less than half of the respondents genuinely feel that they are free. So more than half of the academics feel that they can't easily come out with opinions.
Well, Rod, and this is the amazing stuff. This isn't the students. This is the people teaching the students can't say what they think.
The people running the place.
Gee. Good Lord.
So, that is appalling. You imagine any other profession where half the members said, we don't think we can carry out a core function of our job in the current environment. And that's what's going on. A core function of the job is to debate, is to look at different sides of things. And we're not talking about fringe opinions. we're talking about the well-known hot-button topics, trans rights and all the different permutations of race issues, climate change stuff, where people want to look at different sides and just can't because they're told, well, it's settled. And if you want to look at different sides, well, you're a bigot or you're a racist.
Well, there's that old saying, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. Have people really been cancelled and lost their careers because they didn't join the groupthink on those issues?
Well, there are several high-profile examples of that overseas. I'm not aware off the top of my head of a high-profile person actually losing their job, but it's more a case of people seeing where the danger lies and restraining themselves before it gets that bad.
Mm.
So people like Kathleen Stock in England, for instance, who takes what I think are perfectly reasonable positions on trans issues, and she's written a book called Material Girls, which discusses it in a restrained way, in a respectful way, in a way that acknowledges different points of view, just found her life untenable with students chanting outside her window and university management just making it clear they wanted her gone. And she was saying stuff that 10 years ago would have been quite unremarkable, but is now considered to be beyond the pale. And that's wrong. The whole point of those people is to spend all day long thinking about issues and looking into them and exchanging ideas, because the point is, of course, to inform the rest of us.
Yeah.
That's where we get our deep thinking from, by reading what the professional thinkers write and say. And it's not just when we pass through universities, because they contribute to literature all their lives, and those of us who are interested in these things can dip into them.
Yeah.
And we're all poorer if there isn't a proper range of opinions on things that matter.
And look, opinions, and actually, in the march of time, facts can change, or accepted facts can change, but that, I mean, historians tell us that. We look at various theories, and much of our growing knowledge of the world is actually generated or created through this process of contestable thought and speech, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is. And many things that we now think are obvious were deeply unpopular at one time, like, maybe homosexuals are not morally degenerate. Now, if you said that even 50 years ago, you'd have been laughed at. Of course they're morally degenerate, but because we have free speech, because minorities can express themselves, because they can offer reasons and debate and thought, the great ship of public opinion can be turned, and the world is better for it. And the idea that women can be trusted with the vote is the same thing. The idea that non-white people have the same...
Yeah, well, the jury's still out on that, Rod. But look, where then, and this is a global trend, where has it come from? What group of people have driven it? Because I'm presuming it's not just organic. It didn't just happen.
Well, I mean, if you're talking about where does culture come from, I'm not sure anyone really gets that. My own perception is